So yeah, I'm going to talk about publishing, and it's a huge topic, and it's rapidly moving. I mean, we spend a lot of our times just trying to follow along with the developments, both on the policy level and in the practical level, where you actually do publishing. Uh, and yeah, it's a lot happening. So I'm going to give you some snippets of that kind of information. Try to keep it short, and yeah, let's get started. So to begin with, just a few words on open science, because that's a word that's been floated around a lot. And there is some confusion on what it actually is and what it means in practice. So you're all familiar with open access. That's been like something that's been going on for 20 or 30 years now, a gradual increase of open access publishing opportunities, and how we do it, why we do it, and how common it is. I would say that we're approaching like 90% open access publishing at Uppsala today, especially if you look at journal articles. Books, not so much. But so yeah, open access is the new black, really. But open science is much more than that. My way of looking at open science, there are many different ideologies and philosophies behind this, but it's publishing according to the scientific method. So instead of just looking at plainly, well, I want my grandma to be able to read my paper, that's open access. Open science is ethics. It's transparency, reproducibility, trying to publish in a way that is according to the scientific method, which to me is very, well, rewarding to work with, because I think we have these fine ideas what science is, but when we come to actually publishing, a lot of the time we can't publish it in a way that is according to the scientific method. We put it behind paywalls. There's no data to support the conclusions, and so on and so on. So that's, to me, that's scientific method. That's open science, and it's also about sustainability. Actually, I thought I mentioned that in this context. Both in terms of when we work with sustainability, research should be accessible and usable and reproducible to speed up progress, and also sustainability in the terms of financial sustainability to like try to reduce costs of publishing. And today we work with open access, as I said, for quite some time, and research data is a current hot topic. If research data is at the same stage as open access was in 2012, I would say. It's very complex, it's very heterogeneous. We're looking at as open as possible, as closed as necessary. So often we get this, when we talk about open data, people tell us, well, everything can't be open. And you're perfectly correct. Everything can't be open, but as open as possible. On the horizon, we also have open code, open methodology, open source, everything basically. But it's also important to note that all of these aspects are not applicable to everyone. You need to look at your own kind of research and think rather, what do I need to do to make my output reproducible? That's open science to you. Another thing that's starting to come more and more now is looking at the journal article as an artifact. In all fairness, the journal article is a 19th century thing. It's a printed paper volume. You send it out to your peers. And that's how the paper looks still today. Even if it's a PDF, it's still a print paper to a large extent. I'm not saying that we shouldn't publish articles and papers, but we should look at them in a different way. Look at a paper or a group of publications as interoperable digital research objects. That sounds very fancy, but you can also look at it as a recipe. Imagine you're looking at a glossy magazine and you find this image of a nice cake. And there's this brief description of how the cake was baked, and you try to bake it and you can't, you fail. It's not at all as fancy as the picture lets you believe. And that's open science again. You need to make the recipe reproducible. And you need to state what kind of oven you had, what temperature. Is it a warm air oven, or is it just regular temperature, regular oven? Is it an air fryer even? You need to have all those things. That's open science. Open baking, maybe. So a few take-home messages here in how to do open science in practice is always do open access. I would say that when I was a PhD student, publishing open access was an extra, something that you could. It was nice to see, but it wasn't like something you expected. My view is that today it is expected, and I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I see out there. So it's rather if you don't publish open access, besides the funders being angry at you, people expect it to be open. Always keep copyright and use a proper license. That's also part of open access, but it's I would say it's almost more important than the access bit. Make sure that you keep ownership of your own work. It's so important, and it's going to safeguard your work for the future so that you can reuse it and build on it better. Try to have a data management plan, or at least think about how we manage your data. I think my data management plan was to have it on an external hard drive that you got when I finished my project.
We just do that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, I know how it is, but that's not sustainable. Also consider alternative publishing formats, not instead of the paper, but in combination with the paper. So method papers, databases, code, open reviews. Sometimes you do a project and it doesn't work out, but maybe you can publish the methods or the data, so you get something out of it. And also, instead of thinking, finish everything and then publish the finished product, maybe start thinking a bit in terms of publish as you go. When the data is ready, maybe you can publish it. You have a great method that you developed, publish it. You have your manuscript, it's a preprint, publish it. And then eventually get the final publication. You can link all those together as the the big recipe. That's also very useful for junior researchers to build your CV with incremental publications until you get the final peer-reviewed official papers, which still is the main thing that counts. So how about funding open access? Yeah, open access basically kills the subscription-based business model on the funders. And the commercial publishers want to fund this by using the article processing charges, APCs. Standard range of these is around 2,500 to 5,000 euros per paper. And we have some outliers like Nature approaching 11,000 euros for a paper, which is of course outrageous. So the actual cost of publishing a paper, this is meant as a question, but I'm moving on because we're short on time here. So that can be done easily, very cheaply today. The price of these APCs, they are based on the idea of printing journals and shipping them worldwide. That's costly. Digital publishing is dirt cheap. So it still takes a lot of work, but that's the work that you do as editors, as reviewers, as authors. So that's the work that goes into there. And then we have some technical bits, we have server hosting and all the platforms and everything, but that's still quite cheap. So if you pay anything over 1,000 euros, you're being ripped off. That's the sad truth of it. And that's what I meant by sustainable financing of publishing. We're not even close to that. So one attempt at solving this has been those national publishing agreements that we have, that you mentioned also, Val. In Sweden, we have Bibsam. In the UK, there's JISC. We also call these transformative agreements, and there are two main goals here. It's to provide equal access to open access publishing to all members of a number of organizations. In Sweden, it's, I think, 92 organizations that join into this. So everyone that's at Uppsala or Stockholm or Malmö or Örebro, whatever, gets to publish in these journals that we have agreements with, without having to pay from your own research funds or your lack of research funds. You can still pay even if your funds, you can still publish even if your project has run out of money, basically. The other goal with this has been to transform the hybrid. I'm not going to go into detail of what that means, but transform subscription-based journals into open access journals to like make that part of the agreement with the publishers. So today we have agreements with more than 30 publishers and more than 14,000 journals, and it's growing. For the STEM subjects, we have great coverage, I would say. But there's very little transformation going on. Wiley, the second largest publisher, they transformed 5 journals last year out of their many thousands of journals, and they started more subscription-based journals. So yeah, that's not working. Not all universities and countries can afford these agreements. I mean, Sweden, UK, other Nordics, and the Netherlands, they do great in this area, but not many others. Yeah, another problem is the publishing costs become invisible. Instead of you paying from your research funds, where it's actually painful to pay these 5,000 euros, it's now paid from the central university budget. But you still pay for it in overheads. So, and you pay around 70 to 100 million a year for that. So that's good to know. And it also disfavors journals that are cost effective because we don't have agreements with them in many cases. As I already said, we have good coverage for you. The biggest exception is MDPI that we do not have a agreement with. We also have some smaller publishers like PLOS and IVA Publishing. We are probably also going to get Copernicus for next year, the EGU publisher. That's I've been hoping for this for a long time now. They're great. They are cost effective. They charge, I think, 800 to 1,000 euros for papers, something like that. Yeah. So I don't promise it, but I think by February we might have an agreement. I'll let you know then. And there's 2 links here for where you find information about this, or just email me or someone else at the library and we can sort you out. And to use these agreements, you need to have a corresponding author at the university, use your full affiliation down to department level, and use your Uppsala email. If, for example, you're a PhD who finish your employment here and move on, you can still use these employments even if you lose your email. But in those cases, it's best to let us know beforehand, and we'll make a note of that, and so that when it comes to us, we can solve it for you to avoid any potential issues. So a few words about predatory publishing and gray zone publishing. That's a big issue these days. A big drawback with open access publishing is this thing that we swapped from, we financed that by pay-to-publish models. And this has created a great niche for predatory publishing, and above all for quantity of publishing. So the publishers now, they get more money the more they publish. Instead of, in the past, they had an incentive to keep down publishing volumes, to have small, high-impact volumes, and to sell those expensively to the libraries. So now everything, the publishers want to publish a lot because they get a lot of money for each paper, and researchers want to publish a lot because you get, well, your career development is depending on the number of papers you get, and universities want you to publish a lot as well. So everything is pushing for quantity, and the quality is kind of sometimes forgotten by some actors in here. So that has caused this niche of pure predatory publishers that are like just criminal fraud publishers. But it's also made the serious, so to speak, publishers go into that direction more and more in many cases. And it's also important to notice that there are some journals that are okay, but they're published by a questionable publisher. There's some publishers that are okay, but they have a few low quality journals, and there, of course, sometimes a great paper ends up in a crap journal or vice versa. So you have to keep this in mind, that we have the publisher level, the journal level, and the paper level, and the author level. When I talk about publishers, it doesn't mean that every paper by that publisher is crap, but I think you understand what I mean. And many established publishers use these practices to, in financial terms, predatory practices. And the best example of that is NDPI. They are an open access publisher, and they offer competitive rates. Their APCs are a bit lower than LCP, for example. But the way they do this is that they have barely any peer review, or they're very rushed peer review. And this has been noticed. And earlier this year, Web of Science delisted a number of journals, and among them was the biggest, the flagship journal of MDPI. So the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. It was actually the second largest journal in the world when this happened. I'm not sure about their status at this moment, but they lost their indexing in Web of Science and thereby also the impact factor. And this was based on a long history of shoddy peer review, basically, and lots of editorial boards had resigned, and because they were pressured by the publisher to increase quantity over quality. A lot of reviewers have come out and said that, well, I reviewed this paper and rejected it, and then, oh, look, 2 weeks later it was published with none of my changes in it. So, yeah, but that also, I mean, those are the bad things, but I also heard from other people publishing MDPI, and well, we haven't had a decent experience because that specific journal maybe had an editorial board that was doing an okay job. So again, they are not all the same. Yeah, I'm gonna move on here, I think, but MDPI has also been very skilled at misusing the special issues. I don't know if you heard about those, but they have special issues all the time so that they become the normal issues. And for the particular mega journal I talked about, they had planned for more than 5,000 special issues this year alone. And the way they do this is that they approach a researcher at Western University and ask them, oh, do you want to be the special guest editor for this special issue? And they, oh, flattered, of course, let's do that. And maybe the special issue is fine, especially if that guest editor does a good work. But this attracts authors, and yeah, a lot of paper, and again, quantity is money. So yeah, just a word of advice to try to stay away from these kind of publishers in most cases. VR went out, I think, a few weeks ago talking about how they sponsor these publishing agreements we have. And they mentioned that they will not sponsor MDPI, for example. So that's if you look at it from a career development thing, also, you don't want to publish where VR does not look kindly on it. So what about funder mandates? All relevant funders now have open access or open science mandates. You're probably well aware of this, but so open access is clearly something they ask for, and also some level of data management. They ask for a data management plan, and more and more factors are taken into these mandates, such as data, of course, but also code, citizen science, for example. Until now, or until recently, the funders have rarely controlled if these mandates have been followed, but we see a shift here that they're actually looking to check on you. Have you actually done what you said that you would do? I'm not aware that this has caused any repercussions, but maybe it will. So I'm just warning that take it a bit more seriously than you needed to 5 years ago. Yeah.
Just make a comment there.
Please do.
The prefect did not actually sign or validate any awards of grants until a data plan has actually been seen by the.
Yeah.
That's the Swedish Research Council.
Mm.
It's also been mentioned that we should have data management plans for all the research that is undertaken with public money.
Yeah.
That includes the money that's given to, for example, our research program in terms of the get that. Our own organisation could also be implementing what the Research Council.
It's coming from different directions. And I mean, at this moment, it feels a lot like open science, everything's coming from above. But we also have to remember that it is a grassroots movement originally. And I think it's a good point in time to try to take back that grassroots movement and to engage yourself in making this happen. It's not for the administration's point of view, but for science, for yourself. Yeah. So I have a few take-home messages regarding funder mandates. You're going to have access to this later, so I'm just going to leave this and you can look it up yourself. Some of those things that you can, as a sheet, or what do you call it, checklist. I'm going to mention two trends quickly. There's a lot of talk about reform and research evaluation this time. I would say it's mostly talk at this still, but that's where the winds are blowing. And the main theme is moving away from quantity-based to quality-based, really. Look less on number of papers and citations and actually evaluate the quality of things. And science over bibliometrics, actually. A lot of things have been written and said about that. I'm gonna just realize this was hiding. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. We're not sure how far this is going, but something's happening. Second trend is, I'd like to mention, is a coordinated effort to reduce this dependence on commercial publishers. It's a huge ask again, but from the EU level at least, this is something they take seriously now, and trying to build publicly owned publishing channels to at least complement, but to some extent replace commercial publishing. And I like to just give a case example from the earth sciences here. I don't know if you heard about the journal Botanica, which was a DIY community-based journal that started in 2018. And it's inspired a number of sister journals, also in the earth sciences. And there might be a fifth one coming to Uppsala, actually. But we also see this there's two journals in medicine that's been published by Taylor and Francis, and they left Taylor and Francis and now run their own house, basically. They realized we don't need a publisher. We have a journal, that's enough. Because digital publishing is dirt cheap and very easy. Yep.
And these are initiatives led by researchers.
Yeah, by the editorial boards, basically. They had contracts with Taylor Francis, and when they ran out, why do we need this? And in both of these cases, they reduced their APCs from 2,500, 3,000 down to 400 or 500 euros. So it's inspiring, I think. We have the same kind of platform at Uppsala that I'm managing. So if you have a journal, if you would like to start a journal, let me know. We'll host you. Yeah. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.